Hi, I'm Shannon Warden, and the story I wanted to tell was of a time when I felt angry with God and how He loved me and showed me grace upon grace until I got all the way through it. I wanted to start with an excerpt from something that I wrote in May of 2014. Today in church, I could barely get the words to songs out. Singing is one of the ways I worship. I often feel closest to God when I'm singing. It felt inauthentic to me. Some of the words I couldn't even make with my mouth because I didn't mean them, or I cried instead of singing them because I wanted so badly to mean them because I know them to be true. I still go to church because I believe the healing will come. I still believe it's there I'll find peace, and that's where our support is, because that's what the church does. Sometimes it's easier to run away and not let people love us, but that would just be another loss. Gabe was 13 and in 8th grade, and by all accounts, he was healthy and growing normally. He'd started to have what we later learned were symptoms of being dangerously ill, but at the time, they could be explained away as adolescent growing pains. He'd rapidly lost a lot of weight, but that just made him look like he was getting taller. He had complained of middle-of-the-night trips to the bathroom and almost not making it. He said he was thirsty constantly and couldn't get enough water to drink before cottonmouth set in within just seconds. He said he could barely keep his eyes open in class. These all really seem like typical teenage complaints for a growing, active boy. We were on our way to a midweek baseball game, kind of joking about these recent happenings with him, when it occurred to me to Google it. Diabetes was in every search result. How could I have missed it? We remembered one of the baseball dads was diabetic, and we asked if he could check Gabe's blood sugar. Jason's brother Scott, who is a nurse, told us that if the number was over 200, that we might want to get him checked out. Normal range is between 70 and 120. The meter read 600. I'll never forget the look on that dad's face. He told us we needed to take him to the ER at Children's Hospital immediately. On our way, all I knew to do was to ask people to pray. They got us back very quickly, and it was just a whirlwind of blood tests and IV drips. They said they needed to rule out other things, worse things. I saw the fear in Gabe's eyes and prayed that he would be okay. Lord, just let him be okay. Uncontrolled blood sugars over time leads the body to going into a coma. There's nothing that makes time stand still more than watching the rising and falling of your child's chest while they sleep, just praying that nothing happens to keep them from waking up. It was the longest, scariest night of my life. Tests soon confirmed our fears. He had type 1 diabetes, an autoimmune disease that attacks the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin. Without insulin, we die. Our body can no longer regulate blood sugar, and it goes high, and eventually we starve, and our organs shut down, and we die. This was what was beginning to happen to him with his rapid weight loss. His body was not absorbing nutrients, and he was starving. The body desperately tries to flush out the toxins being formed by high blood sugar levels, which is why extreme thirst and frequent urination happens. Type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance, where type 1 is insulin deficiency and is an autoimmune disorder, which means the body is fighting against itself. Type 2 is typically able to be controlled with diet and exercise and is largely preventable. The only management for type 1 is injected insulin. It's not preventable, and there's no cure yet. Type 1 is most commonly diagnosed in childhood, and it used to be called juvenile diabetes. After the shock of the diagnosis, we'd gone through 2 full days of training at the hospital, feeling like we were drinking from a fire hydrant. The dust began to settle, and we were feeling more stable. That's when the anger came. I remember specifically not being able to sing at church. I couldn't bring myself to sing the lyrics, "Your sovereign hand will be my guide. You've never failed, and you won't start now." We were getting our feet under us again, and I was deeply angry. I felt like being strong for Gabe and protecting him was my job. I felt forgotten, punished, and burdened by God. I did not feel like worshiping. But I knew my faith was intact because I knew it was safe to be angry. I was reminded of David in the Psalms and of Naomi and Ruth. He never forgot them or turned his back on them, even in the midst of their angry questioning. A few months later, I wrote these words. Today I feel fierce and strong. I've been filled up and crudely stitched up by the love and care of those who weren't afraid to get into the battle with me. Remaining faithful, even though I didn't feel like it, was the path through it. There was no getting around it, only through. Around that time of wrapping up this angry time, God led me to a woman named Dot. Dot was a beautiful Christian lady who I greatly admired, and her daughter Kathy was in our small group. I had recently learned that Dot had cancer, a lot of cancer. I felt God prompting me to go and pray with her at Kathy's home. This is what I wrote about that day. I didn't know if it was for me or for them, but God told me to go. I didn't tell them that I hadn't been on very cordial speaking terms with him, or that it would definitely not be my idea to do that. So if I felt that prompting, I'd better go, because who knew when I would feel that close to him again. I believe God was using them to minister to me more than me to them. The encouragement they brought to me, watching them be full of joy, and even though there was some fear of what was to come with tests and such, that there was unwavering trust in the Lord, and that his sovereign hand would be their guide. It was remarkable. He knew that I needed to see that right then, not a day sooner, and that it needed to be them. That was a gift, and I was convinced that God was letting me know I was still his. I might be a mouthy, bold, rebellious little child, but I'm still his. I'm not going to say there haven't still been hard days. There have been plenty. But Gabe had to grow up fast, and he eventually grew to be a courageous, conscientious, compassionate caregiver of souls. He has a deep appreciation and respect for life and lives it to the fullest. He's healthy and strong, and he's getting married soon. We've been able to educate on the early signs and symptoms of type 1 diabetes and even be a resource for families who have had to walk this path with their kids. And God has used us to change school policy for kids that came after Gabe. I never turned down an offer to buy a JDRF sneaker at Kroger, and I hope that you will too now. But my perspective now on a hard day is completely different because of that experience. His healing and his peace are unsurpassed. No one loves like God loves. John 16:33 is a verse that helped me reconcile the pain of this world with the peace of Christ. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world.